the heart of every great poster, and indeed every great design, lies a powerful idea. Design, in its essence, is about solving problems with powerful solutions. It's the process of thinking, questioning, and exploring before arriving at a design that speaks, resonates, and connects. In today's fast-paced, technology-driven world, it's tempting to dive straight into digital tools and start creating. Of course, creative software excels at helping us execute ideas, but does it truly excel at making us think? True creativity often starts away from the screen. So before we launch our creative software, there's a critical step that ensures our designs aren't just visually appealing, but are meaningful and effective. Moving to the sixth step of our design process, here we undertake the process of generating ideas for our poster design. Before we jump into software tools, it's crucial to take some time to think about our design intentions and the direction we would like to go in. It's an important time to reflect on our mood board and begin to use our imagination to generate ideas. And one of the most effective ways to do this is by sketching. Sketching is not just about drawing, it's about translating our thoughts and inspirations into tangible concepts. It's where our ideas begin to take shape, offering a direct path from imagination to visualization. Sketching is a timeless, tried and tested process that has worked for hundreds of years. So as we continue into the sixth step of our design journey, we move into a new phase where we enter into the realm of sketching to generate visual concepts for our poster design. So why is sketching so important? Well, essentially, sketching encourages us to think divergently, which encourages us to be more inventive and go beyond what may be in front of us to discover more compelling creative ideas. Sketching is an essential part of the design process where creativity flows without the confines of software. Also, the great thing about sketching is that anyone can do it. It's not about perfection here, it's about ideas. This hands-on approach ensures that when we move into design software, we're building on a solid foundation of well-thought-out ideas, not just improvising on the screen. I find there is spontaneity and chemistry when sketching. A lot more magic can happen on the page than on the screen. Also, ideas can come very quickly when sketching, which allows us to realize creative solutions much faster. So in this part of the class, we'll dive into sketching techniques that lay the groundwork for our poster design. You'll learn how this crucial step not only streamlines the design process, but also elevates the final product. So let's grab our pens and pencils and start sketching our way to compelling designs. So in this video, we are going to be covering two main topics. One, generating rough ideas, and two, crafting refined scamps. So when it comes to design, I often like to start on paper first. Having an idea first makes the experience of artworking on the computer later much easier, so I'm not just pushing pixels around on the fly and hoping for something to look nice. So a process I like to take is to first reflect on the subject of my poster and its contents, consider the anatomy of the poster design checklist, and review the poster grid types reference doc. In this instance, I can look at the poster contents deck supplied by the design brief, where I can see the copy options available to me, the product photography, and also design assets I can include. Also, I'll have my color and texture mood board I have prepared earlier, which outlines all the visual elements I will need to consider. The anatomy of poster design checklist is something I have prepared earlier, which I use as a tool to help me in my process. Here I can look over all the important elements, so when I'm sketching, I can keep in mind what I need to include. And the poster grid types reference doc is another tool I can use to consider how I may want to manage the visual elements and how I may want to lay them out. So once I understand the design brief, I'm aware of the poster contents, I have my mood boards for inspiration. I can then begin to sketch out poster design ideas, keeping in mind all the key criteria. To do this, I like to draw out poster outlines on paper first, where I can sketch my initial design ideas easily. Now, drawing out poster outlines can be time consuming, so I often use a template doc I have prepared earlier. So to do this, I like to first print out some poster outline sheets from the poster grid sketchbook. This is a sketchbook I have carefully created from scratch that contains lots of grid samples I prepared earlier that I can use to base my design on. Instead of purchasing blank or generic grid sketchbooks where I'll have to draw out my outlines multiple times, here I have prepared specific grids on individual sheets, which makes it easy for me to print out, focus, sketch, and plan my poster design quickly and effortlessly. So from this sketchbook, I'll print off some simple poster outlines on a few pieces of paper, and then I'm ready to start generating some ideas. At this point, I can also reflect back on my poster grid types reference doc to consider what kind of grids and structure I could base the design on, and then I'll start sketching out some initial design ideas. Now this will typically start out really rough, where I'll sketch and test some initial concepts. Here you can see a range of ideas I had for a variety of layouts and permutations of my ideas, also considering the types of grids I could use. When sketching, it's important to think about visual hierarchy, how I want to lay out my elements and how I intend to balance them. Personally, I like to use fine line markers as I like the ink, and if I make any mistakes, I can use Tip-X to remove anything. Here I'll just draw with a series of very simple lines to map out the form of my poster and how I want certain elements like image, type, shape, form and space to work, and how I may divide the page up into sections and place on my elements. Across the ideas, I'm looking at various ways in which the sneaker product images and the type can work as the primary hook, and how the other elements will work around them. As you can see, this is mega rough here, where I'm just going through lots of ideas quickly. Now, while sketching, it's very common for one idea to trigger another, and this is why sketching is so important, because you can generate a lot of ideas fast and generate ideas you may not have had originally. So your 9th task for this class is to undertake some quick sketching. Now you understand the design brief, you have your own mood board, and you have some typefaces selected, have a go at sketching out your own designs. Remember, this is not about perfection, it's about ideas. So try and travel fast and sketch down your thoughts. Be sure to refer to the task list PDF in the class download folder for more instructions for this task. Now you're welcome to follow along with my sketches, but if you want to have a go at this process to explore your own ideas and practice your own skill, take some time to do this now. So give it a go, start rough, and try and generate 8 to 16 layout ideas. Try and spend around an hour plus on this exercise. And if you do undertake some sketching, be sure to share them in the class project section below, as we would all love to see what you can come up with. So once I have lots of ideas down and I feel satisfied I have covered lots of ground, I will then start to think convergently and shortlist the ideas that I think work best and stand out to me as options I'd like to develop further. Now, if I'm only sketching for myself, I'll just generate a bunch of rough sketches like you see here. That makes sense to me. They may be a bit rough here, but that's okay because these are just for me, and I could now jump onto the computer and start to work these up. However, sometimes when I'm working on a project, I may have to show work colleagues or even a client in the early stages, or I may just want to take a closer look at how type will play a part in my design to get a more accurate preview to see if and how a design will work. And sometimes I may even have to pass these concepts on to another designer to work up. Sometimes as a creative director, I don't always design the finished products myself. Sometimes I will pass on ideas to other designers. So to brief them and give them something easy to follow, a Scamp will do that perfectly. If this is the case, then I'll generate more refined sketches that outline an idea more clearly. These are called Scamps and are more refined, clear drawings which clearly and comprehensively outline the approach and intention for a design. Where my initial sketches were quick and rough, these are a lot more refined, where I will focus more on the individual elements of the composition. For these, it should be very clear what my intention is and how I want to manage the elements on the page. At this point, I may also reflect back on the typeface research I did previously, draft and incorporate the font to see how this will look and work in the design. Also, in these Scamps, I will focus more on the grid that I plan to use and draft my layouts on grid templates. I can print out and see more precisely how I can manage the layouts and what approach I may take on the computer. To do this, again, I can print off some poster outline sheets from the poster grid sketchbook. This time I can scroll through the many grid types and samples included and print grids that I'd like to explore. Normally I'll compose these either on a separate page or include two on a sheet to maintain clarity. For this I printed out a range of grids and drafted my designs on these. So for my Scamps, here you can see a range of compositions I felt worked quite well. Here I'm using a mix of column grids, baseline grids, modular grids, and even diagonal, radial and axial grids to realize various outcomes. This enabled me to look at how a range of type alignments could work to explore how dynamic I could make my compositions. From these, I can see how typography can work inside the grid, and what kind of typefaces will work to fit the message comfortably and not compete too much with surrounding elements. What I also like to do when drafting my Scamps is draw a thick line around the part of the poster I want to draw the eye to first, the primary hook. In this case, the sneaker product images. And the rest of the elements I draw with a range of different thicknesses and weights to see how the supportive elements work in the hierarchy. With some other layouts, I have explored going bold with the logo and using modules where I can include some image textures and graphic imagery. Here I have some very typographic layouts where I'm making the type large and eye-catching. And here I have some more alternative designs looking at diagonal, radial and axial compositions. Right now I feel these are pretty clear and I can see how I'd like to manage each element in the composition and the types of grids that I can use to construct them. Now keep in mind, these may not be final designs here, but they do a good job of clearly showcasing a concept for a design, which can be good to discuss with colleagues, clients, or other designers in the initial stages. So this can save a lot of time overcommitting to a design on the computer, where discussions and decisions can be made before investing time to artwork a final piece. So once I feel I have some good ideas down, I'm excited about some of my compositions, and I know which ones I want to develop into finished designs, I'll then think about jumping onto the computer to start crafting my design and bringing my designs to life. So your 10th task for this class is to try and refine some of your rough sketches. Now this task is optional, but if you feel you would like to have a go to practice your skill, pick at least 2 ideas from the rough sketches and try and draft them carefully into refined Scamps. Now if you're curious, you can open my Scamp examples to see how I have approached this as a reference. Be sure to refer to the task list PDF in the class download folder for more instructions for this task. Now try and spend around an hour plus on this exercise. And if you do undertake some refined Scamps, be sure to share them in the class projects section below, as we would all love to see what you can come up with. So once you have undertaken some sketching and you have some ideas you want to develop further, we can now jump onto the computer to bring them to life.